This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of June 1st, 2020. You know, this isn't the kind of podcast, this isn't the kind of website that you go to for politics. It's not the kind of place that you go for controversy, and I'm really aware of that. You know, there are plenty of places right now that you can look at and find that kind of content. And regardless of what I personally may say or think in other places, this isn't where we talk about that stuff. But there is something I would like to talk about, and let's be honest, it does kind of interact with what's going on in the world around me as I record this on Monday, June 1st, 2020. The last couple of days, I think that we can all agree, have been fairly different for our country. And of course, the last couple of months have been fairly different for our country. It seems lately that it's very hard to accommodate and to adjust to the world before it changes again. And this is why I want to talk about local television and local news. That's really the spin that I want to put on this, and I want to stay away from politics as much as possible. Local television and local news are critical in times like the ones that we're living in. It's absolutely imperative that you have sources that you can trust, because regular citizens pointing their phones at things and posting them on Twitter and Instagram are a great source of local news, but they offer no perspective. They're taking a relatively small snapshot of what's going on around them. And while this is incredibly valid and incredibly important in the world in which we live, it may or may not be a really resonant or truthful assessment of what's going on in the bigger picture. Right now in America, it's very hard for us to agree on what's going on, and that's why we need more than ever a large number of news sources full of qualified journalists that we can trust. You can get those from newspapers unless your town is too small to have its own local newspaper anymore. The national news is only going to be able to cover a certain number of things, and they're going to lend their own perspective on things. But what you really need sometimes when things are happening around you is a local point of view. A local point of view that you can trust. And that's what you can get from real news departments, real television stations, and not just one. Because I would encourage you to seek out as many points of view as possible and make up your own mind as far as what's going on. You can do this when there are more than one news organization in your area. How does that happen? Well, let's be honest. Television stations are not charities. The news coverage that you watch is paid for by commercials, and those commercials are really only available to those people who watch via antenna. I'll explain real quickly. You see, cable and satellite companies have for many, many years done their own what's called local insertion. They sell their own commercials and they superimpose them over the ones that are put in there by the broadcaster. This is legal, and it's allowed by the contracts that are signed between broadcast stations and satellite and cable companies. This is part of why satellite companies and cable companies end up paying for this service and why retransmission fees are so high, because these local TV stations know that their commercials aren't being seen. But if you really want money to go to those local TV stations, you have to watch the commercials that they are putting in there. And the best way to do that is with a TV antenna. A TV antenna guarantees that you get the best possible quality signal coming from that broadcaster. And not only that, you're getting the commercials that they intended to put in there, the commercials that are actually designed to pay for that news coverage. If you get an antenna, you'll also get a number of sub-channels. These are secondary channels that many broadcasters put in their stream, and sometimes they'll run extra news coverage there, or they'll run a second showing of current news and current events. It's a great way to get caught up on things, even if you don't have the ability to DVR them, which I guess a lot of people, if you're going to have an antenna, you're not necessarily going to have a DVR, or the one you have isn't going to be as full features as your cable or satellite one. But news in local markets is incredibly important all the time, not just now, but all the time. And it's something that we have to cherish and nurture, because We all need perspective. We all need to understand the big picture and what's going on, not just what we see with one phone pointed at one direction. There's a lot to learn and a lot of points of view to be considered. And the best way to do that is to be as informed as possible. Unfortunately, local television stations, while I don't tend to shed a whole bunch of tears for them because they have had a lot of time to plan for decreased revenues, local television stations are suffering right now. And long term, they're going to be just fine. But if you really want to do something that shows your support for the community, get a TV antenna from a place like solidsignal.com. Put it up, scan for channels, and find out as much as you possibly can about what's going on in your hometown, in your home city, in the area in which you live. Do this, spend as much time as you need doing it, and you'll find you're able to form the kind of opinions that you need to really shed perspective on anything that the year 2020 is going to bring us. That's about it for the Solid Signal podcast for this week. Stay careful, stay safe out there, and I will talk to you all again real soon.